With surprisingly great rates, State Farm is the real deal when it comes to home and car insurance. State Farm agents are always ready to help personalize your insurance plan, and you can manage your coverage, pay your bill, or even file a claim right from your phone with the State Farm mobile app. You can get a great rate without sacrificing great service. So, when you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper, and we start with breaking news in our health lead. Authorize the coronavirus vaccine from Pfizer today or you're out. That is reportedly the message from the White House to FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn, according to two sources who tell CNN. The White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, told Hahn to submit his resignation letter if he does not okay the U.S.'s first coronavirus vaccine by close of business today. Now, Dr. Hahn is now disputing the story, which was first reported by the Washington Post. But sources say the authorization was already expected tonight or tomorrow, with the Trump White House hoping to ship out the first doses within 24 hours. But health experts are warning that this is going to be a long process to widely distribute a coronavirus vaccine, taking months, and that the pandemic could get drastically worse before then. In just moments, I'm going to speak to the head of Operation Warp Speed, Moncef Slaoui, about the Pfizer vaccine rollout and when you and your kids can expect to get vaccinated. But first, let's bring in CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, what are you hearing happened during this call between White House Chief of Staff Meadows and Dr. Stephen Hahn of the FDA?
Well, Jake, so as this call was going on, the president was publicly lashing out at Stephen Hahn on Twitter for not getting this done faster. And he was also having his own staff and his chief of staff lash out at him privately, because we're told that Mark Meadows did call Dr. Hahn this morning and was basically complaining that if they did not get this coronavirus authorized, this emergency authorization granted by the end of the day, he may not have a job.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The job security of the FDA commissioner now in question after the White House chief of staff told him to be prepared to resign if his agency doesn't grant emergency use authorization of Pfizer's vaccine by the end of the day. Sources say Mark Meadows called Dr. Stephen Hahn this morning after President Trump spent the week venting that the UK had already rolled out vaccines. Top government health officials have said emergency authorization is in the works.
The FDA informed Pfizer that they do intend to proceed towards an authorization for their vaccines.
But things aren't moving quickly enough for President Trump. Today he called the FDA a money-drenched big slow turtle on Twitter, adding, "Get the damn vaccines out now, Dr. Hahn. Stop playing games and start saving lives." Tension has been building between the White House and FDA for weeks, leading to multiple meetings between Meadows and Hahn where the FDA commissioner has denied he was pressured.
The same, I think, is being sort of pressured by you, although you're not really pressuring me, Sanjay, with asking questions about why it takes us so long. I think it's a natural question. I don't mind being asked that, so no, I don't think it's any different than this.
After Meadows warned he could be fired, Hahn issued a statement saying it was an untrue representation of their call and that the FDA was encouraged to continue working expeditiously. Stewing from behind closed doors today, President Trump had multiple targets in his sight in addition to the FDA, including Joe Biden, Barack Obama, his attorney general, and congressional Democrats. Trump's Twitter feed turned into a grievance session as he appeared to acknowledge he won't be in office much longer, complaining the Biden administration will be a scandal-plagued mess for years to come. Trump's spokesperson said that wasn't a concession, but a reference to his latest effort to overturn the election.
I think that was a sort of couched in terms of, if in fact, but I don't think he was conceding anything in particular. He's still litigating his case in the courts.
Now, Jake, back to what's going on with Dr. Hahn. When you talk to FDA officials, they basically describe this extremely difficult situation that they've been put in, where they are trying to walk a fine line between getting this vaccine approved quickly, but not undercutting public confidence in the vaccine, given reports like the one that Stephanie just laid out there. So Dr. Hahn has said they will not approve a vaccine that regulators have not said is safe and effective. But then on the other hand, here at the White House, people are questioning what is the logic in firing the FDA commissioner in the middle of a pandemic with 6 weeks left to go with Donald Trump in office. And Jake, that really seems to be a question that remains to be seen if it will be answered and whether or not Dr. Hahn will ultimately be fired.
And you just heard Dr. Offit, who's on the FDA advisory committee, who said he expected that Hahn was going to okay this today or tomorrow anyway. So there's no need for what Offit called saber rattling, and I could think of a couple other words for. Caitlin Collins, thank you so much. Also breaking this hour, we're behind the curve. That's what one top public health official told CNN about the lack of messaging on the COVID vaccine from the federal government. CNN's Sarah Murray has this new reporting. And Sarah, this comes after we saw the first members of the public get the coronavirus vaccine on camera in the UK this week. What more are you learning?
That's right. We did see it. And, everyone watched that video. And as of, earlier this week, there really wasn't a plan to do something similar in the U.S. And that really lines up with some of the frustrations we've been hearing from public health organizations and from state officials who say, for months we've heard that there was going to be this big federal effort to educate the American public. We saw the federal government ink a number of these pricey contracts designed to be these public awareness campaigns. And state officials and some other public health officials really feel like they haven't seen the fruition of that. And when we are, on the cusp of shots going into arms, they're particularly concerned. States are especially concerned because they haven't had additional money coming into them from Congress. So they're saying, look, we not only have to educate our residents about how effective and how safe this vaccine is, but we also have to explain to people where they can get the vaccine, when they can get the vaccine, and they don't feel like they've had the kind of support that they need from the federal government. Now, from the federal side, officials at Operation Warp Speed and HHS insist that this campaign is starting up, perhaps a little bit more quietly than we originally thought. They point to officials doing media interviews. They point to events at the White House, and they say that a bigger, more robust paid media campaign is going to be underway beginning next week. A lot of folks are concerned, though, that that could already be too late. We've seen the private sector stepping up to try to fill the information void. There are pharmacies that are putting out signs saying, essentially, we don't have this vaccine yet. Check back later. We've seen the Ad Council say that they're going to have a big ad campaign. So there's still a lot that's unknown. And obviously what we've seen from the president today is not helping the public confidence around the vaccine, Jake.
I would imagine not. Sarah Murray, thank you so much for that reporting. Joining me now is the head of Operation Warp Speed, Moncef Slaoui. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Slaoui. Thank you. I don't want to put you in the position where you have to respond to a phone call between Mark Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, and Dr. Stephen Hahn at the FDA. You weren't there, and I don't want you to put you in an awkward position, but I do want to just ask this simple question. Are you concerned that this story, that the White House is pressuring the FDA, could undermine confidence in a vaccine that you feel very positive about?
Yes, I think there is an opportunity there for people to see undue pressure if the story is right. I just heard before this that Dr. Hahn said that it wasn't a true reproduction of what happened. What I can say, because I watched all the event yesterday, is that it was an outstanding set of presentations by the FDA, presentation by Pfizer, the discussion that the advisory committee had. They really honed on very important questions around the age, also around potentially the people that have very severe allergies. And the whole country could, for the whole day, see that this was an effective, transparent, thorough, in-depth review. And now the FDA clearly is in the very last steps of approving. They may approve today or tomorrow. They will approve when they approve. I don't see the reason for any pressure if that has happened, but as I said, I wouldn't be able to know whether it has happened or not.
Well, I guess here's the question, because it's so important that so many people, that at least 70% of the American public get this vaccine. What do you want the American people to know about this vaccine if they are skeptical? Maybe they don't trust President Trump. Maybe they don't trust Dr. Fauci. Maybe they're black Americans and they're aware of the hideous history of the Tuskegee experiment and doctors using blacks as guinea pigs. What do you want us to know?
Frankly, I would say two words: keep an open mind and transparency. The ask from people is, please keep an open mind. The ask from us, from the FDA, from all those involved, is 100% transparency of the data of everything, every single thing that people will look into. Experts, on the other hand, independent from the VRBPAC, the FDA, Operation Warp Speed, should look into the data and say what they think. And I feel very confident as they do that they will explain that this vaccine has exceptional efficacy, has excellent safety profile that's comparable to many approved vaccines, and therefore that it should be used in the populations that have been identified. And I think the experts that voted yesterday voted very favorably for the vaccine, and I assume those that voted against it, at least some of those that did so because of the age brackets, 16 to 18 years of age, as the discussion supported. So that's what I would say. Please allow yourself to be exposed to the data and the information before making up your mind, because if you do that, it's very likely you would be convinced.
And let me caution people out there, just because somebody is on Twitter and claims they're an expert does not mean they actually know what they're talking about. Do some research as to who that person is, where they got their medical training or their training in immunology. Make sure people claiming to be experts are actually experts before you listen to them. I also want to get your reaction to Sarah Murray's...
Thank you for that, Jed.
Well, it's important in this day where, there's this great democratization of megaphones. I want to get your reaction to Sarah Murray's reporting about serious concerns about where the U.S. stands right now when it comes to messaging to convince Americans to take the COVID vaccine. We ran a report yesterday from Tennessee where Ellie Reeve talked to a pastor who's very negative about this, based purely, by the way, on ignorance. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But there are other reasons people are skeptical. What's your response to the fact that the messaging campaign does appear to be behind schedule?
Listen, we have made sure that we, for the last, frankly, 2 months, we are present in the media to discuss what we have done. The messaging, the specific messaging around the data relevant to the vaccine can only be done once that information is public. We can't talk about it when it's not public and when the agency has not said the performance of the vaccine is this and that, and its benefit outweigh its risk, etc. Now that that's the case, we have to go out there, we have to engage with all the leadership at all levels in our communities to help explain the features of the vaccine, its performance, and hopefully engage with people and convince them. But we couldn't do it effectively before because we couldn't be very specific.
Right, of course. You can't say the vaccine's safe if the vaccine hasn't been approved yet and you haven't examined it. That makes exactly. Perfect sense. But the world did get to watch this week in the UK when the first Brits got their coronavirus vaccines. I imagine that was very reassuring to people to see people getting the vaccine, doing well, saying it didn't even hurt. Is there anything like that planned in the U.S.? Will President Trump, for example, get the vaccine on camera to assure his supporters that the vaccine is safe?
Frankly, I don't know whether President Trump will take the vaccine. I note that President Trump was infected not long ago with coronavirus, and that's a situation, I think, where his physician would need to really advise on, because it's kind of different to be a known person that has been infected and has received passive antibodies. Those could be all things that potentially can impact the immunization process. However, I can tell you that there are plans to have people being immunized. I would like to be immunized at the right moment when my turn in terms of prioritization. In public, I would like my family to be vaccinated in order to demonstrate to the people that we're walking the talk. We believe this vaccine is safe, and the vaccines that will follow, if they are approved, they will be approved on the basis of being effective and safe, and therefore we'll take them.
So the FDA advisory groups, they looked at it, but they didn't make judgments, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong about this. They didn't make judgments about whether or not the vaccine is safe for kids 16 or under, pregnant women, people with allergies to vaccines and to medications. When are we going to find out about them? I suppose pregnant women and children are of most concern to viewers right now.
So clearly, there were no data in pregnant women of any relevance to be able to specifically recommend the vaccine for pregnant women. There were no data in children of any significance below the age of 16, and particularly below the age of 12. Actually, Moderna has just announced that they started a large adolescent study, stage-wise, to go for that indication. However, what the advisory committee was asked to vote on is whether the vaccine was safe and effective in people aged 16 and above.